Welcome to the Afterlight Podcast with me, Lauren Grace, a spiritual podcast full of stories and conversations that prove we're never alone. The Afterlight Podcast aims to inspire and educate. Remember, you are the authority on your own life. I encourage you to run everything through your own filter, to take what resonates, and I also urge you to do your own research and consult with qualified professionals for advice on your personal situation. The opinions shared by guests are their own, and any advice by our guests or by me is not a substitute for professional guidance. Thank you so much for listening, and I enjoy journeying back with you to the afterlight. Enjoy the episode. Lauren Grace here. Welcome to the Afterlight Podcast. I'm joined today by Cara. Cara is an intuitive astrologer and the founder of Starpath by Cara, where she guides clients towards their most aligned path forward. Blending deep astrological knowledge with intuitive insight, Cara helps people navigate life's challenges and opportunities like a cosmic cheat code. Her background in spirituality and personal transformation fuels her mission to help others discover clarity, empowerment, and fulfillment through the stars. And Cara is joining me today again on the show. We have decided we're friends, so we're going to make this like a little bit of a regular thing. And on our last conversation, we really talked a lot about how you got into spirituality, how you work as an intuitive astrologer. Today, we're not going to go there. We're going to go and deliver messages for our listener at home, setting them up for success for the new year. So welcome to the show, Cara. Should we maybe let our listener at home know that we both got a particularly cool fashion memo today?
Absolutely. We both got the rock and roll memo.
Yeah.
That has to be our Scorpio rising uniting.
Yeah, that's so funny. So Cara like automatically looks just like hip as hell all the time anyway, but she's wearing this super cool TLC shirt. And I'm wearing a shirt that says rock and roll. And it's just funny when we're both on brand and we're like, here we go. This is perfect, setting us up for a successful show. So Cara had this awesome idea of setting you at home up with success for the holidays. And so this show is really going to be focusing a lot on how we're wrapping up the rest of the year. We're recording this in early October, but this will be released in November. So I just want to say that if anything major happens in that time that we're not covering in the show and you're like, why didn't you guys go there? This is why, because we plan ahead. And one of the things that I'm really drawn to in this conversation is the idea that when we connect with loved ones over the holidays, that's when our spirituality, I believe, is really tested. And I know Eckhart Tolle, one of my favorite spiritual teachers, often talks about how, oh, you think you're so enlightened, go and spend the holidays with your family. And so that's what this show is very focused on. But Cara, I'm going to let you take it away. Where do you want to go from here, sister?
Oh boy. Well, I just feel like that quote is so powerful. And honestly, I have to remind myself of that all the time, with different like challenging family dynamics, and also thinking that there's some kind of like level of spiritual completion. It's almost like that right there reminds you that you are on an endless spiral, and family time can bring you right back into square one, or feeling like you're at square one.
Yeah.
And looking at the astrology, especially with the holidays this year, I will say that the Thanksgiving time period for the US just has so much going on. October is I guess when we're recording this will be the past, but October is a real chance of a major let's get real deep dive moment, as well as then when we get into November, we're looking at retrograde city kind of piling up. We're going to have a Mercury retrograde, which of course over the holidays is like, it just adds that little extra ounce of scattered plans, people being a little bit more distracted and just kind of having a harder time finding that center. And then we're also looking at one thing that really has my eye will be the transit of Uranus, which is already retrograde right now, but it will be dipping back into a different sign. It'll actually go back into Taurus. And when Uranus is in Taurus retrograde, this is it's a very um, kind of this feeling of destabilization, your sense of security. It's kind of this like your internal value system gets a real jostle. And it doesn't have, it's not, ultimately, it's not a bad thing. But, the fact that this will be really compiling around the holidays it's just really got my eye for sure.
It's like adding fuel to the fire kind of idea where you're
Yeah.
already being triggered and then you're being called into question in terms of maybe your ideals, your values, how you're looking at the world. Are you connecting with the people around you in the same way? Before you elaborate a little bit more on that, can we go into the Mercury retrograde thing for a second? So, when I hear Mercury retrograde, I'm not an expert in this, but I always think about, challenges with technology, but I don't really know too much more about what that brings. I just know that sometimes when people say Mercury retrograde, even I reacted like that. It's like, ooh, but what does that mean exactly? Why is it unstable? Are things like frazzled around that time? Is it just related to technology?
Okay, so Mercury retrograde, I think one of the reasons that has become kind of the poster child, boogeyman of astrology is
Yeah.
because it's like it's such a buzzword, everybody knows it, and it's one of the ones that you really do feel it because it's just it's a little pest. It's a, it's just one of those things where it's like you will notice it because it's the little, the car will get a flat tire or you don't have gas, and then you realize that the printer's out of ink, and oh my gosh, I texted the wrong person back. And, it's just one of those ones where it's like, for some reason, it's so obvious, Mercury retrograde, because it's in our communications and it's in our gadgets. It's in our little right in front of our face, mundane kind of things. It's not this big, deep, dark kind of thing. So I think that's why a lot of people notice Mercury retrograde because it's like everybody is on, living on this planet. You have to communicate, you have to get around town, you've got to do the little day-to-day things. And when
Yes.
it's like a domino effect of one thing after another starting to frazzle, you're like, wait a minute, is Mercury retrograde right now? And it's like, usually you get that confirmation.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. I like too that you kind of made it, manageable in a way, because I do think, like you said, there's that boogeyman, there's this, oh no, insert really scary dark music, there's
Yeah.
this big daunting thing that's coming. Don't leave your house, where it's like, that's actually not the case. What do you do when you find that that domino effect is kind of ticking off? Do you kind of take a moment and ground yourself and just maybe find a little bit of play within that?
Honestly, okay, so I also really think too, this is like more nuanced, I guess. It really depends, like Mercury in your personal chart. There are certain people you'll notice these people are more mercurial in general. And those, like your Virgo risings, Gemini risings, those kinds of placements, those are your friends you want to check in on because they are operating on this system that gets really disrupted by a Mercury retrograde. Me personally, I have Mercury in Pisces, which is like probably one of the worst places to have your Mercury because you're just kind of you speak more in poems and riddles anyway as it is, song lyrics. So I'm not really, running on extreme precision, if you will.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Okay. Yes.
when I catch it though, I always kind of just am like, oh yeah, okay, this is one of those times, and I'm not gonna try and fight this. It's almost like, okay, I see the energy. How can I work with it?
Ah, perfect. I like that. And I think that, what this is too is giving us an opportunity all the time to check in with ourselves and see how things are going and not necessarily, kind of lay down and like be a victim to it. It's kind of
Oh
like
yeah.
remembering our opportunity all the time to reframe our mindset or to go, I can laugh it off or play it off or, it's not really that big of a deal or don't make it a bigger deal than it needs to be. So, okay, so let's talk now a little bit more about how we can prepare for the end of the year, what's coming up. As you mentioned, you gave away some little hints there about November and December, but I'd love to hear a little bit more because I know you've got lots to say.
Yeah, so okay, so one of the big guys of November is going to be that Uranus retrograding back into Taurus, which is this, it's a real end of an era. It's a last call for the collective, really, as far as like, Taurus themes are the physical body, sensory, feeling stable, feeling like, Taurus energy is very sturdy. It's very
Yes.
rooted and grounded. Uranus is totally opposite. Uranus is the wild card, rebel, bolt of lightning kind of vibe. And so the two of them meeting again to finish this 7-year chapter before Uranus fully moves into Gemini. This is going to have us kind of digging back and being like, okay, what's up with our internal value system and needing to really see what needs, what's getting cleared out, liberated out of anything before the concrete really sets, if you think about it. Because
Ah.
we could all still have just one last little lesson here in our personal lives about foundations that we might be still rooted in that don't serve on a bigger picture, on a longer term. And it's this little disruptive kind of feeling, but it helps us, ultimately go into a freer, more self-authored type of value system. And so basically what this could look like is like wherever you might be kind of, in an unsustainable entanglement around money, self-worth, value systems, luxury items, physical body. Like just think of this time period as being really uprooted and unearthed from those things. And
Mm.
we're getting that starting November 7th and all the way up until 2026.
Wow, that's really interesting because I guess when you're talking there, I'm thinking about people who are maybe more materialistic, maybe getting their value of self-worth from the things that they possess, or the things that they, are maybe saving up to get. They'll go like, maybe this is going to help me. I'm now going to be, fulfilled if I get that, insert item or insert, you know, I guess situation. Would you say that's sort of fair to say? It's kind of
Oh,
almost
yeah.
like, yeah, taking away the superficiality of
Yes.
that. Yeah,
Yes.
because as we know, anything outside of ourselves can always be taken away. And when we're not nurturing the heart, when we're not coming back to who we are and our value system and really connecting with not only who we are, but also who we're evolving into, we can get really bogged down by all the other bullshit around us, which I think takes us away from understanding our power, our sovereignty, connecting with our higher self and our purpose.
Absolutely. And I mean, just think like, imagine your self-worth is so chained up and tied up to something. And like you're saying, like it's outside of you and how
Yeah.
quickly that could change. I always think of like, I hope I don't butcher this, but there was this time period where it was like all about that certain flower. Do you remember this? Tulips. Everybody was like investing in tulips. Tulips was this big thing.
Oh
I
no.
don't remember the time period. Everybody went all in because it was having this moment of being on the rise. And then it was like, just like that, it was like worthless. So it's like that's a
Wow.
really clear historical example of, being super all in on something that's outside of you, and then kind of having to rewind and be like, wait a minute, what happened here? Why did I connect so deeply with this? And why am I outsourcing?
I love that. It makes me think about in 2020. I mean, I know there were a lot of things that were broken down, around the COVID era and things like that, but I lost my job then. And I remember, for me, I'm somebody who gets a lot of value and a lot of self-worth, I guess, from working. And so I've always had this kind of background fear of losing my job or not having reliable income. And I remember when I was made redundant, I knew deep down, it's almost as though, I don't know if you can relate to this, but you have like your spiritual self that kind of sits in the background. And I feel that when I sit back into that, I can really connect to that heart and that like soul spot. But when I sit and lean forward, which I do most of the time, that's really when I'm like in my human self. Anyway, so when I got made redundant, I knew at a deep soul level, it was a freeing, it was a opportunity for me to really kind of see what else there was for me. But being so tied up in a job and in security and all that stuff, it really did rock my world. But at the same time, that's kind of where we're set free a big
Yeah.
part of the time is when we go, oh, maybe I don't need these things the way that I did. I mean, my husband and I, we just sold our house and we're living in a bus right now. And I've had to get rid and like purge so many special things and books that, like getting rid of the books was really hard. And I had to go through all this kind of mental adjustment, which is so funny to say that I had a hard time getting rid of books or re-gifting them to other people. But we get
Right.
so tied up in the worthiness of the things that are around us that I think we lose sight of the fact that we're enough as we are.
Totally. And if you think about it too, it's like there's that quote, the things you own end up owning you. And
Yes.
I mean, we're really moving into this era of autonomy and really stepping into our power. So
Mm,
I mean, it's like actually clicking to me in real time right now. Like we have to go back and do this because if we are still tethered to these external power sources or external validations, it's only going to slow us down. And I look at us all as like being carry on only, with the South Node in Virgo, which is asking us to really do a lot of releasing and purification on the service that we're in and the
mm,
systems that we're running. And it's like energetically, we're trying to fit through this pinhole almost. And so it's like you can't have all this stuff weighing you down for where we're going. It's very
yeah.
effervescent, that new energy that's coming in.
Oh, that's so good. I love that word too, effervescent. Don't ask me to spell it, but I just love
No.
the feeling that's around that word. When you were talking there, I wrote down breakdown leads to breakthrough, and you were talking about releasing. And one of the things that I love to do on the show, which I know you know, is that I love to give real tips and tricks and techniques people can utilize in their own lives because sometimes I think we say things like, maybe not you, but, let's just surrender more. And you're like, well, how do I surrender? Like, what does that even really look like? And so like, how do I release? And while you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, well, how does our listener at home release? How do I release? Especially when you're somebody like me who really likes control and, releasing is like, what? You mean like handing over the reins to God? Why would I do that? But I think that's where some of the opportunity comes is when we're maybe holding on to things so tightly that we just take that breath for a minute and go, whatever the outcome is fine. I just batched a couple of episodes yesterday. And one of the subjects that I was talking about in one of the episodes was around the idea that we like to make things good or bad. We like to say, oh, that happened and that was bad, or that happened and that was good. But what if we actually go, it matters not what is, instead of, and just kind of accept things as they are instead of labeling things as good and bad? I think when we're talking about releasing, letting go, really having to unearth some of our old patterns or habits that no longer serve us, there's that fear word that comes in, right? Where I go, oh, it's too hard. I don't even want to go there. It's going to be uncomfortable. I might cry a bit. I don't want to even bother. But at the same time, there's gold to be found if we just dig underneath the surface to unearth what no longer serves us.
I love that. And it's almost like that that feeling of like if you can define it and you can name it, then somehow you have mastery and control over it. But when it
Mm.
all boils down to it, we literally like we really don't know. I mean, there
Yeah,
is
we
no,
really don't know.
it's sitting with that undefined, uncomfortable. It almost is like, when people say holding space too, it's like, well, what is that? What is space? What are these terms? And, just being able to sit with your own discomfort,
Yeah.
for fear that if you don't go in and fill something in, that something won't fill it in. And that's another thing that I've always loved is that
Ah,
God or the universe doesn't like a void. So, like, when things are like taken away and there's that immediate need to kind of fill it up with something or to name it, control it, that it's like leaving that open space so that the universe can come in and fill that for you.
that makes me feel emotional when you talk like that. Like when you're saying that, I can feel your heart in that. It's so true and it's so powerful because we do not always know what's best for us. It's
Right.
kind of that idea of when you're manifesting something. I always like to throw in that I want to manifest this or something better. Thank you very
Mhm.
much. You know, yeah. And like you're talking about, creating that void allows the universe to wow us.
Right.
Yeah.
And having like that, creative intelligence, having a much bigger picture for you than you had for you. That's one
Yeah.
that I really like too. Where it's like, wait a minute, the story I'm writing for myself isn't nearly as cool as what's trying to be written for me.
Yeah, that's so good. So, are there more things you want to talk about in November, or should we get into the December period?
Okay, well, the other thing about November, so we're gonna have the layer, like the little retrograde sandwich with Mercury retrograding. Not very scary though, as we
Okay.
established, because it's also in Sagittarius this time too. So that's really kind of just more about like ideas, like bigger things. It does dip back into Scorpio, which is gonna have us kind of doing a little bit more of a forensic thinking. We have the Uranus going back into Taurus, and then the thing that I actually like is Saturn will be going direct on November 27th. I think that's Thanksgiving in the US, somewhere around that time. And I'm looking at this as like a collective, sobering DUI checkpoint kind of moment about really feeling like coming out of a almost like disempowered spiritual jellyfish kind of feeling almost with Saturn being
Oh.
in Pisces, and it's like really the tides feeling like they're turning and feeling like all of this dreaming spirituality, it's about really walking the talk now. And I think that I couldn't love a transit more than this
Mm.
forward momentum. So it's like, maybe we're mentally and we've been feeling scrambled eggs with the Mercury retrograde. Taurus, Uranus in retrograde in Taurus, having us feeling a little destabilized. But then we've got Saturn going direct, being like, all right, boots on the ground. How are we going to start to put in boundaries, establish some, structures here? So I actually really like that. And I think that that's something that we actually can look forward to. It's a different kind of energy.
I like it a lot because, it's exciting when we think that we can reevaluate who we want to become. And when astrologically we're being supported to do that, and maybe bring in those habits or those things that we know are going to support our future self, will we do it now? It feels to me that it's that really big opportunity of going, okay, well, this is what's important to me. I've let go of the stuff that no longer serves me. Now I want to bring in a system or a framework. And you don't have to be like, follow the framework. Like, I think you can still be creative and bring in that magical intention within that, but that's going to really set me up for success.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, instead of just being like, oh, wouldn't that be cool if this happened or that, like, oh, sure seems nice. It's like Saturn Direct is like, let's do this. Let's get the plan going. Let's make the
Yeah.
website. You need a channel here. Like, it just really helps, like, put this dream into reality. And so I think
Yes.
that that is, I mean, I really like that. That's a more, it's just something you can work with. It's not just so invisible.
Yeah.
Um, One of the other things that we do have too is coinciding with all of this is going to be Neptune retrograde in Pisces, which is another kind of end of an era energy. So it's like, I mean, the end of this year, 9 year numerology, year of the snake, all this shedding, all this ending, all this graduating kind of stuff is like Neptune is going to be, retrograde here too. And this is also kind of touching into spiritual wake up call kind of moments,
Mm.
spiritual maturity, fog lifting, just all of us, like really, I have it in my notes as this is being like in a collective spiritual crock pot. And dreams, illusions, spiritual longing, lots of themes of fantasy, escapism, and how we're just really going to have to be able to take a little bit more of a look here. Where have I outsourced again, and where are there these like spiritual leaks in life?
That's so good. I know I was talking to someone the other day and they have a business project that they manage and they just took a step back for a while. And they were like, I'm not going to continue to do this because it's just taking too much from me that I'm not getting back and I'm not replenishing, you know, my stores, so to speak. And I think we do that so often where we are in the same habits or we're doing the same projects and we're putting energy into things and then we're not really taking that inventory and going, is this meeting me halfway? And that I
Mm,
think can be said for a lot of stuff, are the friendships that you're having, are you being met halfway? you know
right.
is what you're giving. I remember I did a whole, because I used to have a business podcast back in the day, but I did a whole, and I won't get the numbers correct, but I remember when I worked for a corporation, the one that made me redundant, that I skipped my lunches almost all the time. I went to work early and went to work late. I would work at night at times. I would catch up on some stuff sometimes on the weekend. And I remember I kind of figured out that I donated months of my life with no compensation. And for what? You know? And I remember feeling that, wow, none of that really mattered because I got made redundant in the end anyway. And I think what you're talking about here is you're saying, when we can assess and go, is what I'm giving worth what I'm getting? And I don't think we need to be like, am I getting, like in a selfish way? But
Right.
when we're doing too much, we're depleting ourselves. It's like when we give and give and give and give and give. Well, where's that resourcefulness, where's that resource coming from within if I'm not replenishing myself in some way?
That, yes, and like, and then what is the drive? What's the motivator? I think that's going to be really
Hmm.
interesting, especially when we're talking about like value systems changing. It's like,
Yeah.
well, am I valuing this, chunk of change here, or am I valuing my sanity, my spare time, my quality time with friends and family? It's another one of those like value system type things too. I mean, I've
Mm.
had jobs where it was like crying, being like trying to think of the number on paper that would actually make that job worth it. Like, I don't think there is one. Some are
Yeah.
so bad. So that's
Yeah.
really interesting about that compensation too, and just feeling worth and value.
Yeah. But we don't often, I don't think we take a lot of time and inquire, within ourselves and go, is it worth it? And I know a lot of people too, maybe our listener at home is like, girl, I got responsibilities.
Mm,
Okay. I got a family, I got a mortgage, times are tough, Christmas is coming. Look
yeah.
at you in your like van traveling around. Who are you to say that like, oh, look at all these opportunities? I guess my response to you would be that you can take small steps to look at replenishing yourself. And as you take those small steps, even just coming back to your breath or, even wearing your favorite perfume or lipstick or holding your, like putting your hand on your chest and one on your tummy and just taking some deep breaths to just center yourself for a moment. Those small little things that we do that help us feel good in the moment, I think, give us confidence and support and start to build that foundation so we can make other changes in the future. One thing that I've written down here that I think is important that we talk about before we keep going on is spiritual hygiene and energy clearing. Because I think that if we're kind of taking stock and taking inventory on where we've been spending our energy and what is serving us and not, I think we need to remember to be doing that from a place of clarity. I know for myself, I'm in the city at the moment and I've spent many, many years rural and it's really tripped me up. I mean, I spent yesterday in almost complete anxiety and I know better. I know what to do to clear my energy, and sometimes we also just need to maybe feel that anxiety to remember how good it feels when we don't feel it, or to just kind of embrace it instead of trying to fight it. But one of the things that I realize is that that spiritual hygiene, that energy clearing, that really connecting to your own heart and knowing what your energy is doing, I feel that that needs to happen as well while we make change and while we open up for, the unknown or new opportunities. So, do you have anything to weigh in on that? Like, how do you clear and cleanse your energy? Do you think that's important for us to be keeping in the back of our mind as well as we navigate the end of 2025?
Absolutely. I also feel like, okay, so I was just talking about this last night. We did a full moon release at the crystal shop that I work at,
Oh,
and
cool.
we were doing a guided meditation, and we're in this area called Artist Alley. And there is like an event going on behind us. There is an ambulance driving by. There was like crazy, like basically just a comedy of errors happening while we're all trying to zen out and have this release. I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, this is perfect though.
Yeah.
This is how you do it, because you're like, it's very unrealistic. I mean, unless you do live rurally, but, learning how to make spirituality in the moment all the time on a
Yeah.
Friday at 5 o'clock in rush hour traffic in the Walmart parking lot at the Black Friday sale, it's like it needs to be with you all the time. That's not about going away anywhere where the conditions are perfect and awesome. Anyone can
Yes.
go away to a beautiful retreat, somewhere special, private, la la la, and they can get Zen. But it's like, what are you doing when literally everything's falling apart, sirens are going, you have anxiety, and you have to go grocery shopping, these kinds of things. So I just think of it as like, being really aware in the moment of, okay, this is happening. So it's like, kind of back to what we were talking about, defining things and giving it a name. Um, Kind of recognizing that you're starting to fall apart a little bit. And
Mhm.
when that happens, though, one of my favorite things to do is to put myself in check and realize that, like, whatever's happening in my head right now, in my little, like, piece of the universe, I'm looking around me and being like, oh my gosh, there are 200 people here, all probably having some kind of, meltdown in their own way, and realizing that we're literally just all kind of just doing our best to kind of get through something. So it's
Yeah.
almost like this collective camaraderie kind of feeling sometimes. Whenever I start to feel way overloaded, I will look around and I get a lot of peace from thinking about just like, oh my gosh, this person is probably in a fight with like their spouse right now, or figuring out how to pay a certain bill, or running late. I don't know, it really helps me
Yeah.
come into the moment when I put it into perspective, how it doesn't diminish what I'm going through, but it just makes me realize that, like, we're all having some kind of varying degree of, kind of a crisis, I guess, at any given point. And in that, I find so much comfort.
Yeah, I like that too. I mean, that whole sentence comes, misery loves company, but at the same time, it's, we're never really alone. And I
Yeah.
think too, when you kind of go, wait a minute, maybe if I, kind of check in with the people around me and understand that other people are also going through, maybe it also helps us to remember that we're telling ourselves a lot of stories and we don't have to believe them all. And if we kind
Yeah.
of take that step back for a moment and go, well, maybe if I become more of the observer or I take an inventory on what's around me, I can stop being so in this, narrative that I'm creating for myself, where maybe I feel like I'm in this box instead of kind of understanding, sitting back in that soul seat for a minute and going, wait a minute, look at all these cool humans around me, these souls that are navigating the world as well. And it's like, all right, we all got this. We can do it.
Well, we're all kind of like trying to play it off that we're totally got it going on. And
Yeah.
I noticed myself doing too. Like, I'm completely flawless, like just getting through this day, like nothing phases me. And it's like,
Yeah.
actually, all of this is phasing me, all of it, all the time. We're processing so much all the
Yeah.
time. And I do think like my attitude has shifted so much from this feeling of like, you got to get off grid, to like, no, you have to go to the center of the grid, because
Yeah.
that is where it's really at. That is the heart of like, if you really want to get strong and level up and get to yourself to this feeling of like, I could feel my center and feel peace if even if you put me in the middle of Times Square right now. Like, I just feel like there's so much ease in thinking about that, and just realizing that like, if you can get it here, you could get it anywhere. You can
Yeah.
take this with you.
Yeah, that's so good. Eckhart Tolle and Oprah in 2008, they did a whole series on YouTube for his book, A New Earth. And every chapter that people call in, and I've listened to it many, many, many times. I find so much value from it, but it's basically 10 hours of a master class on this book. And one of the things that he was talking about was that even he's received letters of people in the prison systems and solitary confinement where they've actually found peace in their situation.
Oh
And
yeah.
so if people can do it in those situations and we can do it when we're in the middle of traffic and we're late for, like picking something up or late for a meeting when it doesn't really actually matter at all. And
Right.
I love that moment of clarity. It's that whole idea, like you were saying, you go and you meditate with the monks for like years. I think there was a story I heard. I quote Eckhart Tolle stuff all the time because it's just so impactful for me. But I don't know if it was him or Wayne Dyer or Alan Watts or someone, but anyway, it was this story of the idea of like, this person goes and they're like studying with the monks for years, and then they've achieved enlightenment, and then they leave at the end of the the time period, and they go and they're like trying to get their visa to get back into the country that they're from, and they're in line at the visa, and someone cuts them off, and then all of a sudden they get to the teller, and the teller doesn't have the info, and they start to get worked up. And that's the thing, is that you can't be on the mountain all of the time in Zen. And I mean, what a masterclass for yourself if you're able to be spiritual, like you said, in those moments of inconvenience. And I just love that, such as when we're hanging out with maybe our family and our friends in
Right?
December.
Right. It's almost like
Yeah.
we can microdose the holidays by throwing ourselves into chaotic public situations, or
Yes.
just realizing that, like, we're kind of always in it in just varying degrees.
Yeah. How do you clear your energy, especially as an empath? Like, what do you have a certain ritual that you do, or like, is that something private? Some people don't want to
Not
share that,
private
which
at
is also
all.
fine.
For me, okay, so I am really, really connected with water as
Mm.
a cleansing. So I even have right here this is some water that I have from Mount Shasta from a trip I took last year. And I don't know, there's something about just like this little spritz. I just get like
Yes.
such a recharge from water. I work with crystals. I always have like crystals on me. I have like, even right now, I have two crystals in my pocket.
Beautiful.
I love crystal energy, water, and I start, honestly, I guess you could say I just work with the elements. So I love taking a bath every single day. That's one of my non-negotiables.
Yes.
And also walking. Um, I guess so. Yeah, it looks like it's really about connecting with physical elements, touching something, water. I love incense, the smell of the smoke. It's just like using my sensories can really put me in my body and really help elevate me and make me feel really clear. And don't underestimate the power of a good night's sleep too. There's
Oh,
something about,
100%.
like, deep sleep almost feels sometimes like a timeline jump for me, where it's like, wow, I have completely cut all energetic cords to whatever was going on. Even if you can take a nap sometimes too, I'll find that I can literally shift my entire energy, and it almost feels like destiny can change just from that reset alone.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I interviewed a really, really powerful speaker a little while ago named Lindsay Schroeder, and we were talking all about being priestesses and walking the priestess path. And I'm not a priestess, but that's what we were talking about. And we were also talking a bit about the witch wound, and one of the quotes that I wanted to share that I thought you would enjoy, and this is a short version of this powerful statement that she said, but it says, "A witch follows the religion that has no name, that is nature based, that is alchemy, that is that in between the proton, neutron, and electron, that truly is the connection to the elements that create each and every one of us." And I just, when you were talking about connecting with the elements around us, and I'm not saying you identify with the title of witch or anything, but it's just more around really honing in to what's going to ground us and make us feel good in the moment. And I remember I interviewed this really powerful woman as well a little while ago named Pamela Chen, and she was talking about standing outside and just letting the wind blow through you. And I thought, how cool is that, And I'm doing that now. Like when I'm walking around, when it's windy, I just go, just blow through me and just let all that shit go. Anything that I've collected along the way, move it on. And yeah, I just wanted to throw those things into the mix here, because when you're talking about connecting with energy, you just go, there's so much around us that can clear us, that can fuel us, that can ground us and help us to to be living our best life as we navigate, you know, the human existence, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so simple too. Like it's just right in front of you. It's the
Yeah.
very things that create reality. So it's like it's not even this big mysterious thing like, oh, how do you connect, working with energy. That can seem really
Yeah.
magical and woo-woo when really it's
Yeah.
like, well, I'm just spraying myself with some water and touching a rock and you're standing
Yeah.
outside in the wind. Like that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Feels good.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left in our chat today. What should we be looking at for December? Because December is a biggie. And I know that, one of the things I wrote down when I was prepping for our call here is I wrote down, is patience and presence important in December?
Like the answer to that is always yes. Um,
Yeah.
it's December to me. Um, I just think of December as integration. And yes, presence and patience. And it's like, if we've been spending so much time almost feeling like stripped of all these identities and things that make us comfortable, and it's almost
Yeah.
like this feeling of like being exposed or raw. And I look at December as, this is a nice way to start to like intertwine, integrate, start to process. Um, we're still working with a lot of Sagittarius energy, which is very adventurous and wants to ask questions, bigger picture. It's the philosopher. It wants to pull in new ideas. We also have Gemini full moon, and Gemini is super curious. It's kind of bringing me back to what you were talking about earlier about not needing to have a definition for things, because it's
Mm,
almost like in December, we have this opportunity to ask more questions, be curious, and allow for things to sort of be in float, and just kind of letting things settle in. We'll also have Capricorn energy, which
hmm
people have their opinions about Capricorn energy, but I look at it as kind of like having going from kind of a free for all kind of vibe to now you have an adult in the room when Capricorn is in the sky. Like, okay, we have supervision. So there will be an opportunity for things to start to kind of you know, I wouldn't say that anything is really sewed up perfectly, but the vibe shift is palpable. Um, Best advice is to really embrace this almost like fool card from the tarot, beginner's mindset almost, and
mm,
maybe asking more questions than having answers feels really supported. Intuition too is going to be the guiding light, because I definitely feel this sense of a lot of people being really ungrounded and flying around energetically. And instead of getting sucked into their tornadoes, just kind of being in your own little tornado, and being curious, like, where is the wind blowing me, where is this story going, without it having to be this like hardcore doom and gloom narrative, because we certainly do not have all the whole picture yet, because 2026 is the rewrite.
mm. That's so good. And I wrote down curiosity just before you said it. I think when we can get curious, we allow in playfulness. And when we allow playfulness, we allow not to take things so seriously. And I always feel better when I remind myself that everything can change, right now. Right now, my position of power is in this moment to just completely change my whole life. And I think when we allow ourselves that opportunity to at least go, I don't have to have it all figured out, but I know that nothing is locked in stone. I know that I can, if I'm curious and I allow myself to just maybe be here in this moment. Because one thing that I wrote down as well was, well, what do we do with all of this stuff? I feel that, maybe our listeners going to get off the call and go, well, what's my first step? And, maybe the first step is just to just be there for a moment and, follow joy and follow the breadcrumbs of joy. And I also wrote down conclusions. And it was like, for me, December, I always think about the end of the year in terms of no matter what's going on astrologically, I always just think it's kind of a wrapping up, conclusions, and setting us up for success. So maybe booking in those holidays. A lot of people work through the holidays. They don't always take them off. Well, maybe book in and plan some self-care stuff. Maybe get that facial or get your hair done or take a staycation or camp in your backyard, depending on, what the weather's doing in your area, or camp downstairs and build a fort, do anything that kind of, I think, gets us a bit out of maybe feeling that awe, you know, that energy is heavy. I don't know if I'm explaining myself right, but I just feel that, yeah, there's an opportunity for us to kind of go, let's just wrap things up, but we don't have to wrap it up in a serious way.
Definitely. And I
Yeah.
just feel like too, I kind of like what you're saying about like playing with what you have,
Yeah.
because it's almost like it's kind of giving me the same vibe of like remember with COVID where people were trying to do creative, interesting things to kind of mix up the energy a little bit, like where they were like camping in the living room and, just kind of like working with what you have, being creative. Um, one of the I would say trickier energies to work with is this Neptune in Pisces at the 29th degree, which is what we're looking at here. And a lot of that is really foggy. So,
Mm.
being curious, being playful, and not needing so much for things to be this like solid set in stone kind. You know what it's giving me is like when they blow the dandelion and the all the seeds start to fly in the wind, and just like being okay with kind of being in that energy in
Yeah.
December.
Yeah. It's almost like
Like,
being led.
yes. And not
Yeah.
like being okay, like, okay, I am, blowing in the wind. This story is absolutely changing, but not getting hyper fixated that it's going to be a scary story. Like, it can be
Yes.
a really optimistic, because that's the energy of Sagittarius too, is like very optimistic.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. All right. Well, we're out of time. Is there anything that you wanted to say before we wrap up? I know that we are going to be connecting again in December and then also in the new year into 2026, really supporting you at home on this journey. Kara and I got your back. But one of the things too that Kara can do is do your own personal chart and look at your own situation. Because as you were saying, Kara, depending on where your positions are, your planet positions, your rising, all that kind of magical stuff, you can have a bit more clarity in terms of some of these influences. So, is there anything you wanted to say in terms of December that you didn't get to, anything I didn't ask you, and the best way people can connect?
Yeah. For anyone out there who is feeling like they would like some more clarity on their personal journey, this is a really, it's intense. It's going to be the holidays, and we have a lot of shifting vibes. So if it's something that you're called to, I do offer one-on-ones at my website, starpathbycara.com. I also play around and make reels on Instagram and TikTok. And I do that, just to help give little bite-sized pieces of information that people can digest and just make sense of current transits. So that's another really good way for people to kind of like, just get to know astrology and get to know me. And I also have a code for your listeners too.
Ooh, perfect.
If they use the code Afterlight, they
Yeah.
do get a discount on a reading on my website.
Love it. Who doesn't love a deal? Take advantage of that, people. Take advantage of that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Cara. Love chatting, love hanging out, love the rocker vibe today for both of us. It's
Yeah.
awesome. And I look forward to our next conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Hi. Thanks so much for listening to the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave us a review where you listen to your podcasts and share it with your friends. Thank you. New episodes every Thursday.